okay, please forgive me, y'all, but I cannot summon up the will to talk about political news right now. I just can't. I can't do it. But since this channel is called Parkrose Resistance, I wanted to talk about one of my own personal resistance techniques, one of my own personal practices that has helped me get through the last year and a half with my mental health somewhat intact. I feel like it has helped me continue to stay functional at the very least. Now, I have no training or expertise in like psychology or psychiatry or anything like that. And so I'm not saying that the thing that I do may not be maladaptive. Maybe people who have expertise in this area could give me insight there. But I'm somebody who's always been very good at compartmentalization. And so I thought, early on when I got very overwhelmed, right? Everybody else, think back to election night, November 2024, and anybody else just up all night, anybody else go more than 24 hours with no sleep because your eyeballs were just, and your brain was just running a million miles a minute and your heart was pounding and the anxiety was just so unbelievably overwhelming. I knew right then that like I needed to engage in some kind of, one, meditative practice, more than I had been doing previously, but two, also I needed some coping strategies. I needed some techniques, or I was not going to get through the next 4 years, and especially not get through the next 4 years, like taking care of my children and my family and being involved in community level resistance. Now, I am somebody who's always been a spiteful optimist. I'm somebody who very much says, fuck you, make me, right? My kids say maybe I have a little bit of oppositional defiant disorder. I don't like authority. I don't like being told what to do. I don't like some would-be dictator saying that he gets to write the future of this country. I don't want Stephen Miller to decide the direction of my community and my nation. So I'm always a little bit, I don't want to say feisty, but like a little bit inclined to not give up when someone says that everything is over and America is cooked and it's the apocalypse. My immediate instinct is to say, that's not true. No, it's fucking not. We will get through this. If you say we're doomed, I'm going to, maybe just out of pure spite, say, no, we will get through this. But I can't just serenity now everything. Sorry for the Seinfeld reference, but none of us can. None of us can just use toxic positivity and like constantly be hope peddling to each other without anything substantive underneath it. It doesn't work. There's a level at which fake it till you make it sort of works, but you can't just fake it through fascism and pretend that your mental health is going to be okay and pretend that you're going to be able to stay functional. You can't pretend that these problems don't exist. You can't pretend that it doesn't overwhelm you now and then, right? The overwhelm is very, very real. The question is, what do you do when it hits? When you have those moments where the anxiety is like really punctuated and it's at the forefront and you just feel like you can't get up out of your chair or you can't function, you can't think, or your mind is racing, what have you, what do you do in those moments? So here's what I started doing in November 2024, and I have done it on a regular basis since then. Sometimes I need to engage in this practice every day, and sometimes it's like once a week or once every couple of weeks. And I took this technique from some of the ways that I engaged with my kids when they were little, some parenting techniques. So transitions are really hard for young children. And when you say, okay, it's time to go, we have to leave the play date, or when you say like, okay, your turn is over with that toy, you have to go give it to Susie, kids often don't deal very well with that transition. They don't like to have their play and their focus interrupted. And I found over the years, it works far better to set a timer and say, okay, hey, Ruth, we are going to leave in 10 minutes. I will set a timer for 10 minutes. And then 5 minutes through, I will remind you, 5 minutes left on your timer. 2 minutes left on your timer, I'll remind you, 2 minutes left. And you can work on that transition, on concluding the puzzle that you're working on, or finish up your play with the Playmobil set and get ready to hand it off to Susie, what have you. So for so many things, when my kids were little, we would just set a timer. It's neutral. I'm not dictating to my kids. And we often would agree on how long to set the timer. Like, okay, Ruth, you know what? I know that you're playing with that, but we are taking turns here. So how long until you're going to be done with that? How long until Susie can have that Playmobil? And Ruth will say, 37 minutes. And I'll say, you know what, girlfriend, how about less than that? I don't know that you would want to wait 37 minutes. How about we shorten that down? How about 7 minutes? And then she'll be like, how about 9? I'll say, okay, let's ask Susie. Susie, is it okay if Ruth finishes up her turn and hands you this toy in 9 minutes? And Susie's like, yeah, I'm fine with that. Okay, Ruth, we're setting the timer. And in 9 minutes, when the timer goes off, you're going to be prepared to hand this over to Susie, right? Or sometimes there will be a hard and fast deadline, like, hey, Ruth, we have to get, sorry, I'm using my eldest kid as an example. Ruth, I'm sorry, I'm using you as an example. She was the one who had the hardest time with transitions. Never could have guessed that she would end up getting diagnosed with autism. Anyway, okay, so Ruth, we have to get to the dentist. We have to have our shoes on, our jackets on, and leaving the house in 15 minutes. How long do you need to get ready? Well, I don't want to go to the dentist. Okay, I understand that, but we are going to go, and we have to leave in 15 minutes to be on time. If we're late, they charge us $65. I don't want to pay $65, and I want to respect the dentist's time. So I would like you to tell me how long you need to get your shoes on. Well, I need 6 minutes. Okay, I will set a timer for 11 minutes. That will give us 6 minutes remaining. We'll get your shoes and your jacket on in that time, and we'll get going. There doesn't have to be a battle of wills, right? Non-authoritarian parent. I'm not bossing my kid. We're negotiating on time, and I'm helping them have that space for that transition. So, in November, I thought, like, okay, I need to be setting some timers for myself, right? Ruth needed a timer to be able to wrap up her play with that Playmobil and hand it off. I need a timer to be able to wrap up my Mentee Bee and hand it off to another place in time. I was like, I'm going to set a timer and allow myself to have a meltdown, allow myself to doom spiral, allow myself to freak out for a set duration of time, get it out of my system, and then move on with my day. I'm not trying to pretend that anxiety doesn't exist. I'm not trying to pretend that sometimes the news of the world doesn't overwhelm me. I'm not trying to pretend that my anxiety isn't real. I'm trying to own it and allow myself to feel it, work through it, and then maybe it's compartmentalization, what have you. I set it aside and said, that's enough of that for today. I was allowed to feel those feelings and process them and get them out, but I'm not going to keep doing this all day long. And every time after that set, sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes I need 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, this is my time. I had my full-on freak out, and now I'm going to go do this activity, this task over here. I'm going to be busy. I'm going to be productive. I'm going to go plug in, take care of my household, my kids, go to that community meeting. I'm going to call my neighbor and ask if she wants to get together and hang out and knit. I'm going to do something else. And then if I'm tempted to have another Mentee Bee during the day, I'll just say, you know what? We had that time. It's over. We can do this again tomorrow. And it takes a lot of self-discipline, but it's worked really well. Today I've had to set 2 different timers. One was when I got some very upsetting news this morning, and I told my husband, I was like, I just need 5 minutes to freak out, please. I just sat in my bed with my bathrobe, and I was like, put the timer on my phone, 5 minutes to be like, fuck. And then also like, oh my God, no, right? My thoughts were very simple. They were not complex. I wasn't working through problems. I was just feeling the anger, the rage, and the anxiety, and the disappointment, just really feeling those fully. And then after 5 minutes, timer went off, and I was like, okay, time to pivot, time to set that aside and go work on the next thing, because what good does it do me to continue to perseverate, to continue to worry? Nothing. It doesn't materially change my circumstances. It doesn't help us get out of this mess. It doesn't help, move my dreams forward. It doesn't help me live out my values in any way. I did that. I'm done. Now I got to do all of the other things I need to do today. And then this evening I had another round where, I read some of the headline news today. And I decided I didn't want to talk about it, but it still was stressing me out. So I sat here in this chair. I set the timer for 10 minutes. And I just looked out at my garden and I watched the birds and I listened to them, and I didn't do anything else. I just zoned out for 10 minutes. And I wasn't really even like doom spiraling. I wasn't stressing over the headlines, but it was that space that I needed to just work on like relaxing my body and on, unclenching my neck muscles and just letting my brain go on autopilot for 10 minutes because the news was so stressful for me. So I hope that is helpful. That has kept me really functional, not denying my anxiety, not denying my grief and my rage, but feeling it and experiencing it in set durations, in set moments of the day. And then I can pick that up again later if I need to continue to work through it. But we all have a lot of shit to do. I have a lot of shit to do, and I can't be paralyzed. I can't spend the day laying in bed. I'm not going to pretend my problems aren't real. I'm going to let myself feel them. I'm going to accept that there are some things that I can't change, and then I'm going to try and work on changing the things that I can, doing good where I can. So if you have techniques that have helped you get through the last year and a half, I would love to hear it, but that's one that's definitely been important for me.